public under
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this workshop where PubNub and Livepeer will be giving a demo and walk you through how to build a interactive live streaming application using the two services. My name is Eric Tang, and I'm the co-founder and CTO at Livepeer. And we have Marcus here with us from PubNub, and then Chase from Livepeer also here. So excited to be talking about this, this collaboration with you guys. Maybe we'll just jump into it. Marcus, do you want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Hey, everyone. I'm Marcus. I'm from PubNub, developer advocate at PubNub, and excited to be here and walking through this live events demonstration. Yeah.
Nice. And Chase?
Hey everyone, my name's Chase. I'm an engineer at Livepeer. I work on mostly the React and just developer-facing tools for Livepeer.
Very nice. We prepared a little bit of a presentation, but today we'll also do a demo, jump into the code, and show you an example application that we've built using Livepeer Studio and PubNub. So I know Marcus has prepared a little bit of the slides. Do you want to bring it up?
Yeah, let me just share my screen. Hope everyone can see my screen here. I guess I'll just jump right into it. So today we're just gonna go over like live experiences and basically first I guess why even build live experiences in the first place. But we see live event platforms kind of all the time on social media as they've gained more popularity. And it is a way for basically broadcasters to stream right to their viewers. And on the other side of it, it's a way for viewers to kind of interact directly with the broadcaster, right? Let's just dive into kind of explaining what live events are, but better how we can implement our live events to gain more interactions, more views, and more feedback kind of directly from our customers. So first off, live experiences allow for audience members to not only view a stream or broadcast, but allow viewers to directly engage with the audience as a presenter. We have all seen live events on some streaming platform, whether that's TikTok or LinkedIn, but all these live event platforms kind of drastically differ from each other depending on what platform they are on, and it's never just a broadcast. It's always just a stream. It's always way more than that on these other applications. And even using StreamYard here, we can see that there's a chat on the right hand side. There's a lot more that goes into just a live event. So today Livepeer and PubNub will be going through the problems users face when trying to set up their own live event platforms, but also kind of the technical side of things, trying to host, scale, and launch your own platform. So I guess I'll go into the problem Livepeer, specifically Livepeer and PubNub are trying to solve, and I'll hand this over to Eric to kind of start off on what is the main problem behind streaming, live events.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. So so we kind of see these three problems here in terms of building a live interactive experience on, in the virtual world. I think it's interesting to point out that, like Marcus said, right, like the video itself is never the whole thing. Actually, people don't go there to just watch the video, right? If they actually just cared about the video content, they could, watch it on TV, or they could, watch it in other places. But I think the whole value of creating an interactive live experience is about the interaction, and oftentimes the value of the interaction is more than the value of the content itself, right? We see that, for example, on Twitch, where people are going there because it's not just because they want to watch other people play video games. It's because they want to interact with the streamer. They want to be typing in the chat. They want to be chatting with each other while watching the stream. They feel like there's a sense of community. There are other platforms like live shopping, for example, where you're there not only to watch people sell stuff and demo products, but you're there to like actually purchase those products. You're there to ask questions to the person that's in front of the camera and selling the product if they had a specific question, and you're there to see what questions other people have about these products that that are being demonstrated, right? So those are really, really important components, and the really important thing is that it needs to feel like a really cohesive experience. It can't feel if there's anything that's a little glitchy in any of these components, it really it would really create a really challenging user experience. So on the streaming side, people are watching the video content, right? But being able to stream that video, that live stream, and deliver that at scale to a global audience with really, really low latency, that's really crucial, because the lower the latency is, the better the interactivity becomes, right? Even the difference between a 1 second delay versus a 3 second delay is actually a really, really big deal. If you can get the latency down to less than a second, that interaction is going to start to feel much more natural. People can type in a chat box, and immediately the streamer will be able to see it and respond to that, and that immediacy is going to be what creates this really magical experience for the viewers, right? And at the same time, we also need to deliver that video at scale, right? It's not just a one-to-one communication. It's not a video call. It's actually a multi-participant type of experience that you can potentially be streaming to thousands or tens of thousands or sometimes hundreds of thousands of concurrent viewers at the same time. So being able to do that at scale and delivering the same quality with the same latency to everyone around the world is a really, really big unlock. And just even in terms of the of how why interactive live streaming is special, right? Like you're actually not limited by kind of the physical boundaries of a live auction, of going to going to a real auction or going to a place to buy something. You can actually distribute this content to a lot of people at the same time. And of course, there's kind of the forms of interactivity. I'll let Marcus talk about this one.
Yeah. So on top of those two problems that Eric mentioned, the forms of interactivity just are basically about, it could be more than, even just a chat. You can have, people interacting with the live event through like a Q&A or reacting to messages, or, we've seen like on TikTok and their live event platforms, they have like award-based systems, or, even games that they can run within those live events. So yeah, just implementing those forms of interactivity to make kind of the viewer experience better and more interactive, as well as adding a lot of functionality for the broadcaster themselves. But yeah, so I'll go to the next slide, and I'll pass it back to Eric here.
Cool. So with that being said, we'll kind of introduce some of the problems that we want to address today. So I want to give a quick introduction on Livepeer Studio, right? So the Livepeer Studio is a video streaming platform for developers. It specializes in the quality, and the cost effectiveness, and the ease of use and developer friendliness. And this is a product that's built on top of the Livepeer network, which has been around for about 8 years. And one of the things that's so interesting is that even though Livepeer Studio may feel like a traditional API service for video streaming, under the hood, it's actually built using very different infrastructure. It doesn't use traditional cloud providers, and instead it uses a whole new infrastructure that allows us to accomplish this quality and cost effectiveness that using a traditional cloud service wouldn't be able to accomplish. So we'll go to the next slide. Some of the core capabilities of Livepeer Studio today. One is able to create, people are able to create really real-time and low latency live streaming experiences using a simple API. Right, all you have to do is to embed a few components or make a couple of API calls, and all of a sudden you have this global scalable infrastructure that's that can scale and shrink on demand based on your viewership. Right? And the low latency of it, because it uses WebRTC for delivery, we usually get to a sub-second latency, and that really creates the interactiveness and start to make these experiences really interesting. And so there are a few services out there already that do this, and they're all built on top of kind of traditional cloud services like Amazon or Google. And when you are building those services on top of the cloud services, because the cloud cost is so high, it can create a challenge in terms of just the raw cost of video streaming. So Livepeer Studio kind of addresses this problem by just offering a really cost-effective solution that's on average 80% cheaper than public cloud, right? And that oftentimes enables a lot of new use cases or enables more people to participate in these types of interactive live experiences versus before maybe it would have been too expensive to do. And finally, because the Livepeer network is what's being used to offer this infrastructure, the Livepeer network itself has over 100 global network partners, right? So these are not large cloud providers. Instead, they're independent data center operators or infrastructure providers, and that creates a really unique benefit where if any of them goes offline at any point, well, there's still 99 plus other providers out there. So it creates a really robust and cost-effective solution, or essentially you can think of it as like a marketplace for video streaming capacity. Right? Let's go to the next slide. Cool. And so we talked a little bit about, and this kind of visualizes what we mean, right? So the Livepeer network itself is really a global infrastructure. 8 years ago when we started, it was still a bit, hobbyists, people who maybe with gaming PCs are joining this network to just try it out. But over the 8 years, it's gotten pretty professionalized, and now most of the infrastructure run within professional data centers. Right? And that really allows us to create this reliant alternative to a cloud infrastructure, but at the same time, because it's API driven, we can also easily kind of gap fill in areas that we may need cloud infrastructure. For example, currently the live streams scale up to 100,000 concurrent viewers per stream. Well, there are some live streams out there that will go beyond that, especially for large scale events like concerts by popular artists or some popular sports events. Well, that's okay, because when we go over that 100,000 person limit, it's very easy to just put that video into a traditional CDN and help that continue to scale up to millions of concurrent viewers using just regular HLS stream. And we've built out these tools that allow the WebRTC stream and the HLS stream to happen simultaneously. And lastly, right, because this utilizes a lot of the spare capacities around the world on all the different data centers, this is actually a really environmental friendly solution that you kind of using the already deployed capacity to be powering kind of video streaming use cases. We'll pass it back to Marcus.
Sounds good. Yeah, so I guess I'll just go into, before we get to the actual demo, I just want to like consider like, what would it look like to build this demo kind of like that we're going to show off later, kind of without using PubNub. Going into everything to consider without PubNub, it is a decent amount. You have kind of global distribution, which Eric touched on a bit, but having servers everywhere around the world, scalability. So as more users, or if you have more features, even things just get more and more complicated without PubNub. You have database synchronization in terms of chat, where it's like you have to sync databases globally as well as keeping that real-time interactivity that PubNub provides, which kind of goes into latency. And like the message moderation, platform compatibility, DevOps, and then probably the most important thing that everyone wants to focus on is kind of the experience around the live event and the UI, like what you're actually providing. So a lot of these other things that are on here kind of get in the way of that and take the focus away from what companies want to focus on in terms of like because at the end of the day, that's what you're delivering to your customers. It's all about the experience. And then on top of all of that, you kind of have bugs that come up, or delays. You see it with like every software application that's trying to launch globally or at a very large scale. So I guess now we'll just go over kind of like with PubNub, what you would have to consider, which would just be the experience and the UI. PubNub really does handle all the other things that are listed here. And with it is API driven, so you can use our REST API or the SDKs, or in this demo that we created, we're going to go over something called the ChatSDK. But yeah, it kind of takes all these boring things kind of out of the way and just allows you to launch comfortably your application to production, and allows you to focus on the things that a lot of people want to focus on. So kind of like, I'm just going to go over quickly, like, how does PubNub achieve all of this? I guess going over like, what is PubNub? So PubNub is a developer API platform that powers real-time infrastructure to build your interactive experience, manage your ecosystem, and optimize your live events performance. So yeah, what exactly does this mean? So we just provide the infrastructure, the backend that we kind of just went over, like all the different problems that you'd have to manage without PubNub. And we allow you to easily, or I guess seamlessly, call these functions from your client side. So if you're coding your app in React or JavaScript or iOS or Flutter, like doesn't matter like what kind of front end you're using, PubNub should support all of the different client sides, and basically just making it easier to go to basically production. But some of like the features that you could implement into your live events application using PubNub would include chat, presence indicators, so seeing how many people are part of the live event currently, reactions, moderation, polls, Q&A, so like sending like a question in the chat and having people like kind of answer that as like a Q&A, but polls is like kind of voting on different things that the streamer would want to know about its audience, announcements and notifications, which is like push notifications, awards, which we've seen TikTok do that, where they have an award-based system, and those are all real-time functionalities that PubNub can provide you. So just quickly going over the SDKs here. So we have like a very broad range of SDKs, and we support many different platforms. we kind of just strive to make PubNub as seamless as possible to integrate. So, and then in the worst case, the absolute worst case scenario, you can just use the REST API because we have all that documented and, available to use. However, for this demo, I used that we're going to go show a bit later. I use something called the ChatSDK, which is built on top of our JavaScript SDK, actually. And it's basically just coupled together functionality that our clients regularly implemented when they went about chat. So chat has when people were going and building chats, they had a lot of similar functionalities that they all wanted to use, such as moderation functionalities or reporting functionalities or threading a message and being able to reply in a thread. All these things we just coupled together and we made a kind of an SDK on top of our existing JavaScript SDK. So I'll kind of get into that a little bit here. So kind of what is the Chat SDK? Essentially, you have the PubNub network, which you can access through the REST API. And then we made that easier to access by implementing a JavaScript SDK. And then we built a Chat SDK on top of that for coupled together kind of functionality, just making it even more seamless to kind of get your application to production there if you are building a chat. So yeah, again, it goes over Chat SDK offers conversation management, reactions, basic messaging, advanced messaging, such as reactions and stuff, moderation, banning people, muting people, even reporting users or reporting messages. So yeah, that is kind of a quick summary of the Chat SDK. And then I won't take up too much time because I do want to get into the demo here. So okay, but I guess we'll get right into it.
All right, cool. So before we get into the demo, I just want to quickly show the application that we're talk about the application that we're showing today. And it's a really simple interactive live streaming app that contains two components. One is the live stream itself. Another is the chat experience on the side, right? So this is something that if you have done a live stream or if you watch a live stream on the internet, you will be pretty familiar with the type of experience that maybe a Twitch or a Facebook or or a YouTube kind of offers. Today, the goal is to kind of just show how easy it is to put this together, right? Because sometimes I think developers might be intimidated. It may be hard to build a real-time experience, but with these two tools together, it really is quite simple. So the goal is to show how someone can build it to someone with no experience in video streaming and kind of real-time interaction can with just kind of general software engineering knowledge can put together this app within 30 minutes, right? So with that being said, I'll just share quickly what this app kind of looks like. So now we're seeing this app. We kind of have a little chat box on the side. I can start broadcasting my video, and now I'm live. Right? It is that simple. I can chat and say hi. I'm hosting a stream, and I can open this viewer URL, and I can share this URL to anybody else. So I can just register and say Eric2 is the viewer, and now I can kind of watch the broadcast from the other stream, right? I can type in I am watching. I can clip the video if you want to create a little clip of the video and share with other people on social media and things like that, right? So this is quite a simple simple app. And right now we're gonna play a couple of recordings on kind of how the application is built. And we'll start with the kind of the overall architecture, and then go into kind of the Livepeer portion, and then we'll jump over to the PubNub portion.
Under the examples with PubNub, so this is just under our public Livepeer UI kit repo. If you go there, you'll see we have a Next.js application, which is using both PubNub Chat and the Livepeer React SDKs, and we have a general breakdown using the new app directory from Next.js, as well as some React components here, which we'll dive into here in a second. I'll give an introduction into how we built our example app and some of the components that we used to do that, and then I'll walk through some of the code that we wrote in order to integrate with Livepeer. Right now I'm on the docs homepage, so we use the Livepeer dev kit, which includes a React SDK that allows you to add primitives, which you can build both a player and a broadcast experience in your app. So we actually leaned on both of those, built in-browser broadcast experience as well as an in-browser player. We have our demo app, which you can go live to an audience, create a live stream. If I create a live stream here, you'll see that now this is showing my camera with the ability to start a broadcast to that stream that I just created. And then I'll also get a way to open a viewer URL, we call it. This is a very simple demonstration of how we can build an in-browser broadcasting experience. This experience here is using WebRTC, like I mentioned. So when I hit start broadcast, you'll actually see we start a WebRTC broadcast here. So we make a request to Livepeer's servers and start a new WebRTC stream, and then that starts streaming in the back end of the browser and using browser APIs to stream to our servers. So it's extremely low latency. I'll show what it looks like in the viewer experience here. So you'll see if I wave my hand here, I'm sure there'll be a little bit of a lag in the recording, but it's on the order of like under 1 second of latency. But we also have this chat experience here on the right, which we'll talk about later in this demonstration. So that's the core experience there that we built, and then I'll go through some of the different primitives that we use to build this experience. So as you can see in the docs, we have a breakdown of player components and broadcast components, and we'll keep it at a high level for this demo and just generally explain the different code that we used and exactly how we built it. But generally speaking, we provide a set of tools you can use in your React UI to build out different functionality depending on what your app needs are. So for instance, you can add a full screen button, which is very common for users, picture in picture, obviously a play, pause button, things like that. And you can compose these controls together and views together to create a really immersive experience. So really, you can build whatever you want. We generally just hook into the current playback state for our player and for our broadcast component to allow you to build these custom workflows. I'll dive into the code here. This is all public. It's an open repository that we have that you can browse the code. We have this player component and a broadcast component. So I'll walk through the player component first. This is what a mature app looks like when it's built out with all the primitives that we have. So it's very similar. If anyone has ever used Radix UI, it's very similar to Radix UI and actually uses some of their primitives under the hood. Essentially, you can just layer between all these correspond to one HTML component. So this is under the hood, just rendering a video component, a div, and you can customize these to craft essentially whatever you want, like I mentioned. But for instance, so this loading indicator here, this is a div that's only shown whenever the video is loading. Similarly to error indicator, you can pass a matcher query, which says anytime there's an error, show this component, similar to these other error indicators and controls, etc. So the end result is it ends up being that when you have this player state, it'll show this loading indicator and then show these particular error components depending on what exactly is happening. So since I'm not currently broadcasting, it just shows a stream is offline error. That's generally the high level here. So you can string together all these different triggers and indicators and basically show dynamic state depending on exactly what the playback state is. And then similarly with the broadcast component, we have a ability to basically string together all these controls. So you'll see that correspond to these different controls here, like turning on and off video, muting and unmuting my audio. That all corresponds to these different triggers here that essentially conditionally render these different icons depending on if the video is enabled or disabled. So that's the high level of what these different React components are. And then as far as the actual implementations, we have this status indicator, which essentially shows whether it's live or idle. That's something that ends up getting shown in the top left here. So when you create a broadcast here, it'll end up creating in the background a playback ID, which is then unique to your broadcast. And we use that playback ID for viewers. You can give that playback ID to a viewer. It's public information, and anyone who with that playback ID in this scenario can play back the live stream. Under the
little introduction into the demo and what we built out on the PubNub side of things. And then I'll go into more detail into the Chat SDK, which is something that powers this demo, which is actually built on top of our JavaScript SDK. I'll go into more detail and then go through the code after that later on to show you guys actually how this demo is being powered, how it works, and all the features that are included from the Chat SDK. So essentially, building off what Chase says, is you have a broadcaster on the PubNub side of things as like your admin or your moderator. And on the viewer side of things, that's just a user in the PubNub chat. So if I'm a moderator or if I'm the streamer, I automatically get signed in. You don't see like a chat window pop up because I'm already signed in as the admin of the channel. And the channel is a term that we defined. It's essentially something that you're able to send messages through. That's what we call a channel, or any interaction really. But for this demo, it will be known as like messages because we're doing a chat. But on the viewer side, you're able to join the chat by entering your username. So I'll just enter Marcus. And just to briefly go through some of the features. So first thing you probably notice is you can see how many people are a part of your live stream. That is powered by something called PubNub Presence, which basically announces when someone has joined a channel or has left a channel. So I'll keep you up to date with how many people are viewing the broadcast. Other than that, you have your messages on your right-hand side, which you can actually load more when you have over 20 messages by just scrolling up. But default 20 messages will load in. And if you send more, you can scroll up and load more history. And then on the viewer side, you're able to actually interact with these messages. So you have the functionality to report a message or report a user. So if something's inappropriate or targeted towards you, you can report that message or report a user. And also, I'll show you the capability of sending a message. So I can just send a message like, what's up? So if I send that message on the admin side, I can see that message has been sent with very low latency. If I go and as a user, if I don't like this message, I can report it, or I can even report the user as well. On the admin side, they will see that. So that will be known as a flag for the admin. So this message has been flagged. The admin will then have the capability to mute the user, or which will take away their chat application bar, or they can actually go all the way and ban the user from the chat itself. And that will ban them completely from viewing the chat. Also has the functionality to unban or unmute, which brings them totally back in to the chat. If there is a lot of messages though, and people are reporting messages and reporting users, and you want to see like a summary of what has been reported and what has been flagged, you have actually an admin portal down here. This allows you to see which users has been flagged in the chat and which messages have been flagged, and the restricted users that you have restricted. On top of that, you are able to delete a message and restore that same message. So that's called something called like soft deleting within our SDK. But yeah, so you're able to delete any messages that have been flagged, or users that have been flagged, you're able to delete their messages. And that about sums it up for the functionality that we have provided in this demo on the chat side of things. So now I'll go into kind of what is powering this, what are these things called, and how this is using PubNub. So first, I'll just open up the PubNub documentation. So you just go to pubnub.com, go into developers, you're able to click on the documentation tab. Here you'll find a bunch of our different, which provide all the features that PubNub does. But we thought that we had a lot of customers come up to us, and they basically had repeating functionalities. So a lot of them wanted threading, and a lot of them wanted banning and muting and moderation and all these things. So instead of making them out of the box with our SDKs, we grouped a bunch of these features together. And we provided something called the Chat SDK, which is actually built on top of our JavaScript SDK. So the Chat SDK is basically a set of handy methods to create your own feature-rich chat, and it just allows you to get started with PubNub a lot faster, to go from not having any interactive features to having a feature-rich application. And under here, you can see the initial configuration that you can go through, but we'll go through that when I show the code, or like a simple sample chat that you can start up, and all the different features in terms of channels, creating details, listing channels, updating your channel, deleting users, same thing, or messages. Here's like how I deleted a message, for example, and this will show me all the documentation on that. So on the coding side of PubNub, I'm just going to walk through quickly between the code, but feel free to check this out on GitHub or where the application is hosted, and we'll put links in the chat afterwards of where you can check these resources out from. But essentially, under like examples with PubNub, you'll see the inside of components, you'll see the broadcasting side of things and the player side of things, but where the chat lives is within this like chat folder, or these kind of moderation functionalities and chat functionalities all exist within this kind of like folder here. So actually, I'm going to step through the kind of context I have that's wrapped around this whole thing. This is how the chat is initialized. So chat function essentially connects you with PubNub or the PubNub network. So what I do is I call like a chat init function, and I'm able to pass in my publish subscribe user ID. And this is just for demo purposes, but I do pass in my secret key here. But if you really want to do like a full moderation system, you should have a backend PubNub instance where you can connect to the PubNub network and do the moderation functionality there. But just for this demo, we do have the secret key, existing within the front end, and that allows me to ban users, mute users, etc. All the functionality that I showed before. So then I just set that chat instance, and I pass that down to I set that chat instance and I pass it down to this React component here. As you can see, it is right here. I also initialize a channel and a user instance. So the channel instance is the public group chat that I have set up, which I can show. I made it create PubNub channel. I create a public conversation. This allows anyone to join the conversation. It's not limited by anything, but there's still moderation that's out of the box on top of that. But this allows anyone to join the channel and start sending messages. And I also make a user instance for the individual user. So this is not if you're the admin, but if you are an individual user, you can put in a username as you got shown, and you can use the chat instance to create a user. And that gets put into something called app context, which is essentially a database on the PubNub side of metadata that you can store for your users. All that gets passed down into this chat component. This chat component now needs the functionality to listen to messages, send messages, listen to presence updates, send present updates, and obviously flagging messages and reporting users, etc. So I'm going to go through a little bit of that now. So if you just scroll down to this user effect down here that has the init chat, this is one of the first functions that runs. And we use the channel instance to listen to messages that are coming in real time. So if I send a message on this channel, and we'll get to the send message functionality, this event listener is going to fire, and I'm going to be able to receive that message on any client globally. When this fires, it basically just gets the user that sent the message, stores that user if it doesn't have it already in the front end. That is using our app context. And then we set the chat message there, and we just store all the messages that have been sent in real time. The present stream is the same idea. So if someone joins a channel, and this kind of happens in like the background, But if I run this function, channel instance.join, then this function is actually going to fire for everyone else because I just joined this channel. And when this function runs, I'm able to see what the presence count is, and I'm able to set how many users are currently viewing the live stream. Other than that, we have our moderation listeners. This is listening to anything like flag messages, flagging users, muting users, or banning users. So I'm able to go into that. And if I am the broadcaster, which means that I'm like the admin or the moderator of the stream, then I want to listen to certain ban events. So how do I do that? I contact the chat instance. I say listen for events, and I listen to this admin channel here. This gives me the ability to listen to events that are on the reporting side. Because if I'm the admin, I want to know if people are flagging users or flagging messages, right? This gives me the functionality to do that, but it's this channel specifically. This is actually like a predefined channel within our documentation. So you're going to have to actually enter this exact string. This is not something that I came up with myself, but looking at the documentation, you'll be able to find this under moderation, the moderation tab, which moderation tab is here. And you'll be able to find it under this moderation tab there. So that gives me a callback where I'm able to listen to flagging messages or flagging users. So I just break them up by, if the event has a message time token, then it's a message. It's a flagging message event. But if it doesn't have a message time token, then it's a flagging user event. And you can just set the flag users or the flag messages there. On the other viewer side of it, you want to listen to if you're banned or you're muted, right? Because on the client side, you want to know if the admin has banned that user or has muted that user from the channel. So you can use that by putting in your user ID. So you can listen to events under your user ID, and then they will tell you if you're muted, banned, or even if you're unbanned or unmuted, which is what we call lifted. So you can remove the restrictions. Flagging, I guess I'll go over sending a message first, and then I'll go over all that. But sending a message is pretty simple. I can show you guys that here. Where is it? Send text. Yeah, so under this handle form submit, which we have in our HTML down here, when you send a message, I just look if the channel instance is active and the input message has something in it. Then I can just use the channel instance to send a text message across the channel. So that's sending a message. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Just use the channel instance and call send text. Then if you do that, if we go back to the beginning, this channel instance will fire for everyone else and they will receive your message on this callback here. Flagging a message, you can just call message.report. Same thing. If you call message.report, this event listener is going to fire, and you'll get the reported event in this callback. The same thing for all these, like flagging a message, flagging a user, message.report, and then flagging a user is obviously the user, and you can report that from the user object. For a message, you have to report it from a message object. Muting a user, let's see. You can call the channel instance, and you can set restrictions, and you can set if they're banned or muted by just passing in these as true or false. You can actually pass in the reasoning behind why they were muted or banned. For this, I just left it as banned, but muted, or hard-coded it as muted by admin. And then same thing for ban user. You can just call the channel instance and set restrictions for that user. Deleting a message, I think I showed that during the demo, but yeah, deleting a message, when you have a message in the chat, you can call that message.delete, and you can set this variable. You can either soft delete a message or hard delete it. I guess putting soft to false, hard deleting a message. That will delete the message entirely, but if you set soft to true, then you can have the option to restore the message later on, which I wanted. So this will update the message within the chat, and restoring a message, same kind of concept, but you can just call the message.restore. We'll see what that looks like when the message object is updated. But essentially for the chat, the main component, we have this thing called a message component for the UI. This allows me to scroll up and down, load messages, and just like everything in terms of the chat comes from this component in terms of the UI. And then the admin modal is down here. So you can look into this admin modal for the UI of how I set everything up, how I displayed the banned users, the flagged messages, or anything like that. And essentially that's a good overview of, you know, how this demo is powered by the Chat SDK. I hope you guys understand how the event listeners work and how to make them fire for other people and other clients.
All right, that was a deep dive into the code and kind of walking through all the different components. Yeah, I think overall, if you consider all the all the pretty fundamental hard challenges of streaming video in real time and doing that at scale and sending the messages around and synchronizing between them and doing all the different actions around moderation or flagging around the chat experience. I think being able to put this, you can really just put these components together and get a pretty full-featured type of interactive streaming experience in a pretty short in a pretty short session, right? So we'll post the code base and the GitHub link in the follow-up description, so everybody can have access to that. But now I think we can. I know Marcus has a little bit of a wrap up to do, and then maybe if we have time, we can do a little Q&A.
Yeah. Just open that here for a second. Yeah, so I just wanted to go over briefly kind of the functionality, like just in a simple context, just in case you couldn't see.
Oh, Marcus, can you share your screen?
Oh, I thought I am sharing my screen.
Oh, I see. Here.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go over quickly, kind of just zoomed in on like the functionality, like just in case like all the other code kind of got in the way. Just to simplify, I guess, make things like more simple for like how to actually implement the Chat SDK. So we can do that now. So essentially the functions that power that demo are first the initialization function. This is just getting access to the PubNub network. So you could just initialize a chat instance like this. And this is just all the functions just to make a basic chat, just to go over like kind of like how simple it is actually to make an entire chat and for like a production setting. So then what I did was I created a public channel within that demo. You give it a name, description, and then this just allows anyone to kind of join that channel. No really like security restrictions there. And then sending a message. So I just implemented so I accessed the channel instance and I just was able to send messages there. Then I could set the store in history attribute or parameter to true or false. True allowing it to retain in history so I can load it back later. If I set it to false, it doesn't come back with the get history function. But yeah, so that's like the next function here. So retrieve history. So I use the channel instance I call get history, and I can set the count to whatever. And then, but for this demo, I set it to 20. And then by loading more history, what you need to do is you need to have a time token of like the last message that you just loaded, and then it will load all the previous messages from that, time token upwards. If you don't specify a time token, it's just the 20 most recent messages that were sent within that channel. And then using the channel instance, I was able to listen to oncoming messages, which gave me access to that message object, which has a bunch of different parameters inside of it. But the main parameters is the text itself and the user ID and who is sending the actual message. And yeah, so for any more information, yeah, I said before, you can just visit our PubNub docs, go under SDKs here to access any of the specific documentation to an SDK. But in general, for the SDK functionality, you can visit this general tab here. So this generally goes over the SDK. This goes over what's specific to that kind of like SDK for like in terms of like implementing reasons. And then at the bottom here, you have the chat SDK, which you can go over kind of the oh, here, the chat SDK is here, which goes over kind of, you know, what the code was in that demo. And there is a lot more functionality there. There is like watching or inviting to channels, memberships, typing indicators, you know, mentioning a user. So like, you know, if you've seen that before, like you add a user in like Slack or something and it like sends them a notification, like there is a lot more functionality that you can implement. But yeah, that basically kind of wraps up, you know, how I implemented that demo.
Cool. Thank you. Cool. So we have a couple of minutes left. Actually, I'm curious we can jump into the Q&A session. I've gathered a list of questions here. Would be good to get actually Marcus and Chase's perspective on this. So maybe we just start by Marcus. If developers want to get started, you know, you already showed kind of the documentation page where they can get started. If they get stuck, where would they go for help?
Yeah, so I'll firstly show kind of the PubNub website to kind of simplify things here. But just share my screen again. Sorry. So yeah, so on the PubNub website, what you can see is like we have like different solutions by like category that are kind of go in depth of like, you know, how to implement these. We also have a blog resources page that you can look at where we kind of discuss like a bunch of different issues. You know, PubNub and non-PubNub kind of like related there. And then the main thing is we have a bunch of demos kind of hosted on the PubNub website itself, which you can look at, kind of tour around with like how we set those up. So you could go to our tutorials here and see this, and we have those pointing to, you know, GitHub repositories, and you can look at that. You can also contact our, you know, solution like architects and like sales teams to get you set up with someone that can work one-on-one with you in order to specifically help you through your problem. But yeah, the main point is the tutorials is definitely, other than the docs, you know, the docs is definitely the first place to look, but the tutorials will definitely give you more insight on different use cases that we cover. And then like lastly, probably the sales team and solution architects can help you one-on-one with like your issue with PubNub if it remains an issue after that. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. I'll ask Chase then. You know, if people are you know, wanting to get started with Livepeer Studio and build an application, where would they go, and what happens if they get stuck?
Yeah, let me share my screen as well. So yeah, we have our docs page, which is usually the main entrance to learning more about Livepeer. So we have a bunch of guides here for creating assets, live streams, some of the access control and more advanced features that you can hook into, as well as our API reference and the dev kit, which is what we referenced in the demo. So we have a bunch of docs on exactly how to use those primitives that we referenced, as well as like what exactly how they play together, and some examples of exactly how to use those. And then for our first round of support, we have an open Discord channel that you can join and ask questions, and we'll check those questions and answer them. And then we have like more advanced support as well that we can provide. And then for just general like learning about the examples and how people build experiences. We have a bunch of example projects all over GitHub that we can share depending on your use case to help you figure out exactly how to use Livepeer in your application.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. I'd say that Discord is a pretty good place for folks to get kind of real-time help and real-time feedback. And yeah, you can also contact us on Livepeer Studio. There's a contact an expert button, so you can fill out a form and someone can get back to you. Cool. So moving on to the next question, Marcus, what are some of the recent kind of technical challenges that PubNub helped the customers resolve?
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go into depth about a company called kind of Livelike, which we've helped them, host their platform. So they basically offer a platform for broadcasters and sport associations and other, live event companies to build like custom, like immersive experiences. And they provide, like reactions in terms of like emojis and direct chat, group chat, and like even like larger chats than like very large, like global chatting, like the public chat that I showed during the demo. And essentially they're powered, they partner with PubNub, and they're powered using like the PubNub SDKs and our APIs. But Livelike only switched over, they had like issues with like concurrency limits at 1,000 users, and they tried to like work it out in a variety of different ways. But they ended up just like a bunch of people at Livelike actually knew about PubNub prior to working there. So they actually found PubNub that way. And they only switched over, months before releasing their platform with a company called Turner Sports. But they exceeded with like no delays and engaging with developing kind of like engaging experiences. But I found it interesting that they only switched over just a couple months before launching, and they were still able to kind of succeed their deadlines with PubNub.
Nice. And I'll share an example of a recent customer, actually a joint customer that we have with PubNub, on just to illustrate kind of how powerful these tools are. So we have a joint customer called My Prize. This is a streaming application that's in the online betting industry, right? So they're creating something that's pretty unique, where you can kind of have a vertically integrated combined experience of doing online betting and having that experience, but watching influencers do that and then kind of participating or betting with them at the same time. So if you think about the challenges, the technical challenges that they have, right? They're building a online gaming platform. They are building a video streaming platform that comes with the online gaming platform, and then they are building kind of all the interactive streaming component, because they know kind of the interactive streaming is what's most engaging, what's most fun going into that platform, and that's what set them apart from kind of all the other online casinos, right? And so we've been helping them for the last couple of months. It's really a feat that they're able to put together this really complex, big platform within just a couple of months, right? And they kind of focused on building the games and getting the games to integrate and making sure the games are fun. And they kind of just took it for granted that the Livepeer Studio will be able to handle the video streaming portion, so they don't really have to do anything beyond integrating with the API. And for PubNub, it's the same, right? They don't need to worry about if they had, hundreds of thousands of concurrent viewers on the same stream and they all want to chat with each other. How did that happen? What happens if someone is someone is malicious? How do you handle kind of content moderation in those live streaming contexts, right? So I think it's a really, really powerful thing. And I know that it sounds like they're about to launch their platform, and I think they're able to do that within a short, just a couple of months period, build and then able to launch this really full feature platform is something that's really interesting. So lastly, last question, and then we'll kind of wrap up the workshop here. Marcus, what use case are you personally most excited about when it comes to PubNub? I know it's a very general tool, right? People can build all kinds of applications. Just personally, what are you most excited?
Yeah, just to kind of branch off that, actually. Yeah, I talked about a lot about chat today, but the most interesting use case kind of for me is with PubNub is kind of like IoT. And the reason why is it kind of shows how PubNub can be used for, like, I feel like it's the best use case to show how PubNub and its real-time interactivity can be used for so much more than just like chatting. Even though that's, one of our main, features, but like we are able to power IoT devices to directly stream and signal, like if let's say like your refrigerator goes below a certain temperature, you're able to announce that using PubNub to like a dashboard, and then have automatic decision making on what to do there. Like you can turn the fridge off, or like try to like adjust the settings, like and you don't have to do it like manually anymore. So I like the communication between IoT devices and PubNub. It just shows that PubNub can be used for like so much more like in real-time interactivity than just sending messages. But yeah, how about you?
Nice.
Eric?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in the IoT use cases as well. Actually, Livepeer is also exploring that industry, right? With IoT, a lot of video is being streamed as well as a lot of kind of data points are being streamed. So whether it's in the security industry or in kind of monitoring of like a construction site or monitoring of like a warehouse, right? A lot of the a lot of video is streamed, especially now that AI is going through this huge boom. You can really plug in the video streaming to an AI engine and kind of do video understanding of what's actually happening in real time and be able to alert if, for example, if certain things happen, which is quite cool. My personal interest is really around looking at interactive live streaming and seeing how creators can monetize, right? So we all know that there's this huge creator economy that's only growing, but a lot of it is happening on these large social platforms like YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, right? And I think we've seen recently some of the limitations on those platforms because they're very generic, right? I think they serve the generic use case really well. You can go live, or you can interact with an audience. You can even try to monetize your content via advertising, right? But I think the creator economy has gotten so big that these generic platforms don't actually serve all the needs for all the different creators for niche use cases. So we're starting to see some creators, maybe with a larger audience, they're starting to think about, okay, how can I use a YouTube and do my own thing at the same time, right? Maybe I can build my audience on YouTube, but I can create like a more specialized version so that I can do stuff that I can't do on YouTube, and then maybe do it for my biggest fans and allow them to contribute, to pay for the content, right? And I think that's a really cool symbiotic relationship. We see things like people are doing like 24/7 reality TV shows where like influencers from these social platforms will come and join the reality TV show that's on a different site, but you can subscribe, you can use virtual goods, but do like a really really native type of interaction that's not possible on a YouTube or a Twitch. For example, you can type in a prompt and then have a robot to say that prompt in the house that the reality TV show is happening, right? You can pay for that. So these are the types of things that are really interesting to me, because I think we can build just much better tools now to serve all kinds of different needs, and allowing the individuals and allowing the creators to be able to monetize what they do, and to use their creativity to figure out how to monetize what they do, can just create a lot more opportunities, kind of using the internet that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Chase, what about you? Do you have any personal favorites?
Yeah. I think in general, I know just from the technical side, we've been leaning in at Livepeer into WebRTC and some of the low latency features that it offers, and it's really some of the like up and coming technology and underpinning a lot of these really cool platforms. So I think just in general, leaning more into like these real time experiences is something that I'm personally very excited about, and something that we've been leaning into more at Livepeer, because I think there's just a lot of opportunity to decrease latency, and decreased latency just has this Cambrian explosion of all sorts of different cool stuff you can build with it, and all sorts of different like interactive platforms you can build. So yeah, I think that's what I'm most excited about. It's not a specific thing; it's more the underlying technology that I think can really drive some really interesting experiences in the space.
Nice. Thank you. Cool. So that concludes our workshop today. Well, if you're watching, thank you very much for being here with us. I know we'll be kind of editing and publishing the recording, so you have all the content. We'll have the link ready to go for the example app that you saw today, so you can clone the repo and start modifying it and using it as a starting point. And also, don't be shy to reach out to Marcus or myself or Chase if you have any additional questions. Thanks, everyone.